Hey, I kinda don't want to get a summer job, but then at the same time, I kinda want to. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite TV shows, and today I'm going to be doing a review on the latest Loki, the latest Marvel TV show, Loki. Yeah, it's been a while since I have watched a live action TV show. I've been watching a lot of anime, and in the midst of all that, I watched Invincible, which is a cartoon. So finally, live action TV show. First of all, I actually did a small video yesterday, 3 minutes long, right after I finished the finale, and I deleted it because I thought it's unnecessary. So now I'm gonna basically do a more full length, more complete, more whole review on Loki. Let's start off by talking about post Endgame era MCU. Avengers Endgame is actually the last movie is Spider-Man 2 in MCU, which I believe is Far From Home, but Endgame is clearly the end, right? I mean the word end is on the movie title. And so everything after this movie is just completely oblivious. I have no idea where it's going to go. I have no idea where the story is going to go. How is it going to go? What characters will be revived? What characters will randomly suddenly die? And it's all a mist. And then we have Black Widow, which is delayed. So actually, the next thing we got is WandaVision, which is just okay. It has a really good concept, but the first few episodes are slow and boring. A lot of the comedy just doesn't land, and the dialogues are unbearably corny. And also, the villain, aka Catherine Hahn's character, is just very forgettable. Then we have The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is even worse. Not only is this even more boring and the villain even weaker and less memorable, the story just feels very redundant, repetitive, and not entertaining at all. This is basically your average cliche cut and paste carbon copy Marvel Disney corporate thing. Now we have Loki, and I went into Loki prepared to be disappointed, but I actually ended up being surprised. Loki is easily my favorite TV show out of all three so far. It is way more well written, way more tightly paced, way more interesting, and Tom Hiddleston is amazing as Loki. And Loki's character has always been one of my favorites in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So seeing an entire TV show centered around Loki is very interesting, and I really like that. So essentially, Loki is spoilers for everything that happened on Avengers Endgame and before that. But basically, Loki became the main villain for Avengers 1, and he sort of took over New York and tried to kill everyone, but of course, the Avengers stopped him, he lost, and then he got sent back to Asgard. There we have Thor 2, and then we have Thor 3, where Loki and Thor became good buddies now, and they decided to fight against Hela, their secret sister. Asgard is destroyed. Now Loki and Thor are stuck on a spaceship. Thanos popped out of nowhere and killed Loki. Thor survived and goes on to experience Infinity War and then Endgame, and then that's it. And in Endgame, the Avengers had to go back in time in order to retrieve the Infinity Stones before Thanos does, so they have to use the Infinity Stones to fight Thanos back. So by going back in time, they went back to Avengers 1 after the Battle of New York, and they accidentally freed Loki because of that. And that isn't supposed to happen. So suddenly, out of nowhere, the TVA showed up. The TVA is the Time Variance Authority, a group of people who exist in no time, anytime, nowhere, everywhere, anywhere, and essentially if a person breaks their timeline, like causing a Nexus event, which basically means you did something you're not supposed to do, and now you've branched into a new timeline, into a new possibility, like Flashpoint. They're gonna catch you and fucking kill you, basically. And there we have episode 1, and it's as entertaining as hell. It's just right off the bat, no bullshit, no beating around the bushes. It's just watertight entertainment. And then we have Owen Wilson as Mobius, and he is amazing. I really like his character. His character is really fit. Like, Owen Wilson is really well cast as Mobius. It's amazing. We also have Gugu Mbatha Raw, whom I have probably mentioned when I talked about Touch, a TV show that came out like a billion years ago. And she's also working in the TVA as a judge. And basically that is episode 1. And yeah, it is entertaining as hell. If there's one problem, however, with episode 1, it's that Loki had a huge personality change. He went from a person who wants to destroy everything and is super greedy and evil in Avengers 1 to someone who's more humble just because he watched a reel of his own life, apparently, which is kind of unbelievable. But for the sake of the story, I'm just going to let it slide. Now we have episode 2, which is actually even more entertaining. We are told that there is a variant. A variant is a person who is not supposed to exist because the person broke his or her own timeline and is now living wrongly and not accordingly to fate. And the variant is also Loki himself, except it's a her. So now it's Lady Loki, who calls herself Sylvie. So now Loki has to work with the TVA to catch Sylvie, and that's basically the premise. But what I actually love about Loki is that even though it has 6 episodes, the first 2 episodes have a different premise. There's a twist, and then we have the next 2 episodes, there's a twist, and then there's the next 2 episodes. It's like watching 3 different movies, and all put together, stringed together, arranged in a really nice fashion, which is really freaking cool. I really love that when TV shows do that, constantly getting twists and turns, defying its original self. It's just very refreshing. But anyways, back to episode 2. There are actually a lot of cleverly written things about Loki that I don't think a lot of people will notice, because the past, and excluding the scenes that supposedly took place in 1980, there are only 2 scenes that takes place in the past. One is medieval France, and the other is Pompeii, right before the volcano erupts. And these scenes are actually really smartly written. Whenever I watch TV scenes or movie scenes where the characters travel back in time and go to the past, I would just be receiving the biggest headache of all times, because the language people are speaking is going to be inaccurate, and when the main characters speak to those other characters, the language is going to be inaccurate. Everything just looks really fake and convenient. However, what's smart about Loki's writing is that when we are in medieval France or Pompeii before the volcano erupted, none of the extras there actually spoke, which is good. So we don't have to deal with the language differences, because they don't even speak. That's smart as hell. And we also have a scene that takes place in 2050 where we are in this mart, and apparently the Lady Loki, Sylvie, is hiding in that mart. And what I like about 2050 being depicted in Loki is that it's not very futuristic, which is good, because I feel like humans have a tendency to overestimate itself. A lot of people back in the early 1900s are like, ooh, in the year 2000 we're gonna have flying cars. Guess what? We don't. And even in friggin' Blade Runner, in 2019 Los Angeles, there are going to be replicants and this and that. And I know it's sci-fi, it's fiction, but still, these writers overestimate humanity, overestimate civilization. We're not going to be this futuristic this soon. So Loki actually kind of acknowledges that, so I thought that's actually really freaking cool. But yeah, episode 2 is really interesting, and Sylvie is an interesting reveal, I have to say. Now we have episodes 3 to 4, where Loki basically found Sylvie. Now both Loki and Sylvie are hunted down by the TVA. They ended up in a moon where everything is purple called Lamentis. And this is a filler episode, yes. But is it a bad filler episode or a good filler episode? Somewhere in between. Honestly, even though it is a filler episode, if you take this entire episode out of the episode list, it wouldn't be a very good idea because, yeah, again, this entire Lamentis episode, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a little detour, but we still get interactions between Loki and Sylvie, which is very much necessary for the story. But my big problem with this episode is that Sylvie's character is kind of boring. You think that another version, an alternate timeline version of Loki would be just as cheeky, snarky, and as funny as Loki himself. But Sylvie's character is just kind of serious all the time, which is kind of bland. Which is not a huge problem because the story itself is already pretty interesting, but I really wish Sylvie is more interesting of a character. And also, at the end of Lamentis, there is destruction. Apparently, the moon is about to crash onto another planet, and there is this huge long take, but given that there's just so much CGI around it, it just feels gimmicky rather than cool. And also, I feel like filmmaking has gotten to a point where long takes are not cool anymore. After Birdman had done it, after 1917, a lot of other people had been doing these long takes, like in Extraction or in Here, and it's just not cool anymore. So there goes your long take dreams. Episode 4 is very good though. Episode 4 is really good. We have a very interesting twist at the end, which is really nice, and it just leads perfectly into the last two episodes, which is basically very different. Yes, we have episode 5, which some people may consider filler, but honestly, I enjoy episode 5. I like episode 5 a lot. I mean, it's not great, but basically, okay, so from this point on, spoiler alert, okay? Spoiler alert from this point on. But basically, Loki and Mobius, aka Owen Wilson, got pruned. Getting pruned means getting hit by a stick and your entire body disintegrates, but they actually didn't die. They went to this wasteland, which is called the Void, where nothing survives because a huge giant smoke monster from Lost would find you and kill you. And so Loki ended up there and found a group of other Lokis. We have old classic Loki portrayed by Richard E. Grant, I think, which is amazing. And I've briefly talked about this too, but I really like it when Marvel brings back like their own character, but in a classic comic book costume. And in WandaVision they did that, but the excuse is that it is the 80s and it is Halloween, which is kind of a lame excuse. But you know what's a better excuse? Alternate timeline Loki. Here we are. So we got an old Loki, we got a kid Loki, we got President Loki and many other Lokis, and that doesn't seem all that necessary, but it was a fun time nonetheless. But now we have episode 6, where the final villain is revealed, the guy who created the TVA. And I was prepared to be disappointed by the reveal, but I actually ended up kind of surprised. Like, it was actually a pretty solid reveal. And I love the ending. I love the ending. Because we're revealed that there is no villain. And I really like stories that don't necessarily have good and evil. Like Attack on Titan, where in the beginning, it's pretty clear who's good and who's evil. It's pretty clear. But by the final season, you're going to realize that, hold on, there is no good, there is no evil. Everybody has their own reasons. Everybody has their own perspectives. It's only a matter of perspective. There is no good, there is no evil. And that's exactly what Loki had achieved, which is amazing, actually. I actually found this twist at the end kind of brilliant, kind of well written too, and I kind of understand why there would be a season 2. I mean, the story is just way better than that of WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Again, Jonathan Majors, who also showed up in The Five Bloods, check him out. He is actually the final villain, and he isn't even a villain. He's just a guy who managed to create the TVA in order to stop the multiversal war from happening, which killed millions upon millions, billions upon billions. And so he's doing this because he believes in peace and order. But Sylvie still wanted to kill him because Sylvie thought he's lying, and also Sylvie believed in free will. So again, everybody's kind of right and wrong at the same time. I mean, yeah, free will is important. People need to write their own story and make their own decisions. That is incredibly important. By taking away the freedom from the people, you're very evil. But then at the same time, if you don't, you're gonna start a multiversal war, and a lot of people will be killed. A lot of things will be destroyed. So which one do you choose? And that's a very interesting question. Which one do you choose? It's a moral dilemma. And even Loki had a change of heart at the very end, which leads to the final plot twist where Loki was sent to another timeline where nobody basically knows him, which is really interesting. I also really admire that there is no post-credit scenes, because usually Marvel loves a post-credit scene, but there's no post-credit scenes here because it doesn't need to. It's already interesting enough, and I really like that. There's also one thing that a lot of people sort of complain about, or at least some people complain about, and that is the romance between Loki and Sylvie. Sylvie is literally Loki, except it's a woman. So Loki being in love with Sylvie is basically self-cessed. Which is really weird, but I really admire the fact that self-cessed is part of the story of Loki, which is in Marvel, which is under Disney, and they actually allowed the writer to write self-cessed into the story because it's just but I enjoyed this one. There are flaws, certainly. There are moments in this TV show that's just kind of cliche, kind of dumb. I'm gonna be honest here. However, the dialogues are nowhere near as corny as WandaVision. Like, WandaVision dialogues are unbearable at times. And I thought the story is just really well written, really interesting, and really tightly packed, and I'm actually enjoying it. Call me a pleb. Call me a fool. I love my artsy movies. I love my art house TV shows, but I enjoy Loki, and that is the truth. Honest, from the bottom of my heart. I'm giving Loki a strong 8 out of 10. So, have you watched Loki? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.